Hello and welcome to Review-A-SmackDown. It is John Pollock alongside Wai Ting. How are you, Wai?
Good.
Are you ready to chat some professional wrestling?
I would say so.
How much did you watch on Tuesday night?
I watched everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did as well.
Mm-hmm.
We will get to all of it. Tuesday night, the final show before Money in the Bank on Sunday from New Orleans, Louisiana, the site of next year's WrestleMania.
Yes. Also the site of the WrestleMania from 3 years ago.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. From the beautiful Smoothie King Center, which has no lighting in the press area at the top of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you have a flashlight, you can pee.
Or a lamp. That lamp.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Property of New Orleans.
Uh-huh.
That was actually stolen from the Superdome.
I don't know about stolen.
Well,
it's actually behind your head.
Well, we've got it. So tough, New Orleans. Let us dive into things. A lot to discuss here. The show started with the New Day coming out with a New Orleans brass ensemble known as the Soul Rebels.
Apparently they're a big deal down there.
They are the Soul Rebels. Crowd really got into this.
Yeah.
New Day's throwing out beads.
I guess it would be like the Bare Naked Ladies playing Bobby Roode out in Toronto.
Exactly like
I'm
that.
just trying to think of it. Or Drake, I guess. Drake playing a Toronto guy out.
Oh,
yes.
man, yeah.
Huh.
He could come out singing, doing that Tuesday song for SmackDown.
What?
The
Tuesday
Drake song.
Tuesdays?
What's it called? Braden would know this.
There's a Tuesday song?
Oh, let's move on. Xavier says that after they beat the Usos, the Usos can return to their off-Broadway rendition of Straight Outta Compton. So the Usos interrupt this and refer to the New Day as Drumline, a 2002 film.
So,
Xavier Woods knew what this movie was, though, so he got the reference,
the
even though
the
no one
Hardy
else
Boys
did.
book came out in 2003.
That's true. So
Yeah.
we're definitely going for a theme here this week on television. Outdated references. Breezango then came out, and Fandango said that the Usos' day one is not so H, and instead said that their G is for gross. I have no idea what any of this meant. As Fandango continues to talk when the Colognes come out, and Epico was given a microphone. They can talk.
Yeah.
And they called them the fashion freaks and the worst detectives ever with horrible fashion sense. Holy Christ. It's only 8 o'clock. Children are watching.
Yeah, these guys got wutted. Is that an actual
Yes. it
wutted?
is.
They got wutted. And but I feel like they are obviously the characters that are lacking the most in character development. In terms of I guess what they bring to the table in the division, I feel like they need a lot of work, and I compared to the other three, which are actually are all quite healthy.
Yeah, as the most we have gotten out of them on SmackDown thus far is that their name is the same as a fragrance that men wear.
Yeah.
That's what we've learned about them. So this turned into an 8-man tag with the Usos and the Colognes against Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, Fandango, and Tyler Breeze, where Fandango blocked a sunset flip, leg dropped Epico, got the advantage on Tyler, and they brought him to their corner. Breeze eventually caught Primo with an enziguri and then did this tilt-a-whirl off of Xavier Woods into a splash onto Primo. Woods followed with the honor roll. Everyone comes in. Babyfaces clear the ring. They go to break. They come back. They continue. Breeze sends Epico into the arms of Primo, knocks both down. Then Woods comes in, Topicon Hero to the floor, and there was a blind tag by Kofi, which if you look at this, I don't even know if he actually tagged him here, but they went as though he did. Jimmy ducked a Trouble in Paradise. Kofi hit it on the second attempt. Jay made the save, and Fandango went to clothesline both him and Jay to the floor, and Jay Uso nearly snapped himself in half trying to get over the top here. Kofi then held on to Primo, and Woods came off the top with a double foot stomp that they called the up, up, down, down for the victory.
I like that name. I think they've been using it for a while, but it's never been identified as such to my knowledge until this time.
It's branding.
Yes.
for one, Xavier.
Yeah, I thought the match was good stuff for an opener. I'm looking forward to the pay-per-view match. I would hate to see the Usos lose the titles because I feel like they're just on the cusp of finding themselves as characters. So I would like to see this feud continue and to see a lot more focus put on the Usos.
Then they plugged Charlotte and Natalya in the Money in the Bank match, but tonight they fight for momentum.
Yeah, I know.
Huge.
It's a little too much.
There's something at stake here now.
Oh.
This is not just a throwaway match.
Yeah, it's too bad. I think it's getting overused, that term.
It's obviously a word that they are...
Buzzword, yes.
Exactly, yes. They promoted John Cena's return for July the 4th, and then AJ Styles, Shin, and Sami Zayn were in the back. And they're chatting when Sami, they said, gets a little overexcited. And Zayn then walks in and asks, what do you guys want to do tonight? Styles says, hey, man, we're good. And Zayn says, no, we're great. And then he goes into strategy plans, going through all the different scenarios. And he plays a dork, and his downfall is that he plays it too well, that this will only continue with this guy. And he leaves, and Nakamura tells AJ, I like him.
Yeah, it's... Clearly, you know, they're going with what his backstage reputation is as a guy who has too much to say and has too much input when he has to collaborate on matches. But you know, it sucks that this is not a leading role. You know, I don't think a show will ever be written around a guy who is characterized like this. But at least it gives him identity, which is better than having nothing, which is what he's gotten for a long, long time. And you know, their thing is to just try to exaggerate real life character traits of the people, of the performers, and I guess this is their attempt to do that. And I think Zayn, he does do it well, and hopefully he will ultimately just become an interesting personality coming out of this instead of just, you know, being the annoying guy. But fans don't see him as sort of the dork, though. Fans want to cheer for him.
Yeah, but I feel with this character, you will whittle that reaction away over the long term.
We'll see. I think his in-ring is still so strong that despite how you characterize him, he'll still get over. But we'll see.
Jimmy Corderas has a theory that Sami Zayn could win the Money in the Bank, and then it leads to all of these strategies that he lays out every week of how best to cash in for maximum impact.
He'll actually mention it?
He'll be good. You'll see him in like his war room going over all the different scenarios. He can have charts of who's facing who, their strengths.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not into this guy. Mojo Raleigh is interviewed by Dasha. He thanks Shane McMahon for the shot he received last week, but ultimately he failed. Says Jinder is tougher now than ever, and he's been beating himself up over the loss, but he knows how to handle adversity. So he sees the positive in this loss, and it's going to springboard him ahead when all of a sudden a hand reaches onto his shoulder, and it is Zack Ryder who has returned and said that Mojo has nothing to be ashamed of, and they have unfinished business as a team.
Mm-hmm. The way this was set up, you had Mojo pretty much comment on, you know, his singles. Essentially, it was almost a title shot he almost received, and Zack just coming in and putting Mojo back into a team. I think you're setting up an easy heel turn for Mojo Rawley, who, why would he want to team back with Zack Ryder?
See, I see the opposite. I see this being a turn for Zack.
Why's that?
That they fail for the tag team titles, and that was Zack's big thing. He won this battle royal for them. They fail, and then Zack turns on Mojo, who's moved on. He feels
maybe
his focus is on other things.
Personally, I feel the bigger upside is on seeing Mojo Rawley as a heel, as opposed to Zack Ryder, who I think is just such a babyface.
I don't disagree. I think there's more with Mojo as a heel than Zack. I mean, they could go either way. I just the way they position this on, especially on Talking Smack, it makes me feel that Zack is the one they're teasing with the turn. But I think that's ultimately where you go with these two. I don't think this is going to be a team together for the long term. Naomi and Tamina had a non-title match where Lana came out to watch this ringside, and there was a chant for Rusev at the beginning. We saw a running hip attack in the corner by Tamina into a rear chin lock. JBL thinks Naomi should just quit if she loses to Lana on Sunday. Naomi hit her with a kick out of the corner, hits her with leg kicks, and Tamina caught Naomi with a spinning sidewalk slam, and then Naomi did this jumping kick as she climbed up and hit a split-legged moonsault for the win. I don't know what it was about this match, but Tamina just seemed to be off this entire match.
It was all the rear chin locks. I mean, I guess I pointed it out on Monday, coming off of watching New Japan and seeing the outrageous number of rear chin locks that appear in almost every WWE rest spot. But in this match in particular, it was very apparent. Like, this match was like 60% rear chin locks, and
the other 40 was just clumsy. I thought just clumsy, which is not giving me peace of mind for this woman being in a ladder match on Sunday.
I think with the ladder, it'll probably help them. You know, they'll probably put a lot of care into designing certain spots that you wouldn't have to rely on. You know, their efforts to slow down the action like this. So I didn't think this was a good match at all. The other thing of note is that Lana this week didn't really receive that much of a babyface reaction at all. In fact, it was kind of met with "We Want Rusev" chants for her appearance.
I think Rusev is definitely back on Sunday, whether it's to screw Orton, or even something with Lana. But I don't know if they're really going to go that direction with him. I feel Orton is the natural program to beat Orton in his hometown, and then he has a feud coming out of it. Lana then attacks Naomi from behind and did this sit-out powerbomb where she trapped the arm behind Naomi, I guess as her finish, and then held up the title. Mm-hmm. The Singh brothers introduced Jinder Mahal, who entered the ring with the carpet inside. The audience boos as he starts his promo. He says he will prove that Randy Orton is a coward and that he is afraid of letting down his hometown, and mentions that Cowboy Bob Orton and other stars from the past will be in the front row.
Yeah, any guesses as to who else?
Probably not Harley Race, even though he was mentioned in the promo.
He's sick. Yeah.
He just broke both his legs, so I don't see that as an option to be going to a wrestling show. I have no idea who the others will be, but certainly this is an angle alert for Cowboy Bob.
Oh, yeah, they mentioned that. Oh, you think he'll actually get involved?
I think he's got to blast one of the Singh brothers with his cast.
Yeah.
That would be my
I think that would be great. That would be awesome.
And maybe Jinder then nails him or something like that.
Sure.
Leads to Orton having his, what's his anger management deal? What was it called? I
don't know. I forget.
Whatever it was. So then he starts speaking in Punjabi. This is after he calls Orton a garden snake. And the crowd tries to chant USA over his native language.
Yeah.
Randy comes out, and the Singh brothers immediately run to the ramp to confront him, but Orton sneaks up from behind and hits Jinder with an RKO right as the Diamond and Diamond insurance ad pops up. So who's ever doing this is doing a great job.
I think that's a Sportsnet thing.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then Orton leaves throughout the audience as the crowd chants for Randy. So the face-to-face was not really a face-to-face.
No, it wasn't.
It was a face jumping from behind.
It was a face to chin.
Yeah.
Or sorry, face to shoulder, chin to shoulder. I messed that up. I thought it was a decent promo from Jinder this week. I thought he had more of a point to the promo, more meat to it. He's stating a desire to end Orton's legacy in front of the man's family and, his heritage, essentially.
Which haven't we learned enough over the last few years? You can lose in your hometown, and it's it's common practice. It's not going to end your life.
You're right, yeah. I thought this was an improvement. I know he's being scripted to speak in very kind of general terms. I would hope that, in the future he starts to get deeper, the more comfortable they get with the character. I like the story of Orton fighting for his family, fighting for his heritage against, I guess,
gives it something.
The foreign threat in his hometown. Though I feel like they've only skimmed the surface of that story. I thought Randy had one initial good promo stating the storyline, but then beyond that, it was just they've just kind of skimmed the surface as far as what it means to to wrestle in St. Louis, the history of wrestling in St. Louis. I think there's a lot more story you could have told with this.
Ziggler and Corbin were in the locker room, and Kevin Owens walked in and says neither wants to listen to Owens. He says, I don't like you, Corbin, and I only like Dolph slightly more. He says they could work together tonight, injure their 3 opponents, and go into the Money in the Bank ladder match with the 3 of them and fight amongst themselves, or they can just argue and fight each other and walk in worse on Sunday. Says they don't have to be friends, but they shouldn't be their own worst enemies, as Kevin Owens left that fortune cookie for Baron and Dolph to mull over. And they just stood there, staring at one another. Renee then interviewed Orton in the back. He's asked about his legacy being on the line. And he said, Renee, that was 7 years ago when legacy was on the line. And he said everything he needed to say he did with his RKO tonight, and he's going to take the title back in his hometown.
Short and to the point.
Yeah. Do you also notice Randy gets his own personal interviewer? It's like the only guy that Renee interviews on the show is Randy.
You're kind of right.
Dasha interviews everybody else.
Yeah.
Then Natalya took on Charlotte, and momentum was at stake. It was held above the ring. Becky was shown watching backstage. They went through a break early. Charlotte comes back, hits a moonsault off the top, and they cut to Ellsworth and Carmella watching. Charlotte then goes up again. Natalya takes her off and hits a sit-out powerbomb for a 2 count. Goes for the sharpshooter, but Charlotte stops it with a slap and then catches her with a boot. Charlotte kicks the knee and hits the natural selection and pins Natalya. So momentum on the side of Charlotte as she will fly into St. Louis now with extra power.
She won't even need to walk. She'll just glide off of her momentum down the ramp.
Yeah, it's a short trip from New Orleans to St. Louis when you have wings.
I thought it was a good match. I think these two are the best technical wrestlers in their division, so it was good.
That's what every segment
was good.
Like,
it wasn't overwhelmingly amazing by any means, but I thought these two had a good match.
Then we had a Fashion Files segment, which this just felt kind of backwards when we had already seen them on the show. Typically, this segment sets up the match. This was just, I don't know what the setup.
I think this was just kind of there to be there.
Yeah, it was called Sweet Victory. So I guess they were basking in the glow of their 8-man tag, and then they produced this video in the last hour.
I guess.
Fandango's admiring his pecs, and then it cuts to Tyler Breeze, who's been attacked by their desk. And the board had been knocked down, and there was an update on the board which had Sami Zayn listed as generic and needs a mask. And Tyler is describing to Fandango that he was hit by someone with super dry skin with 2 arms. And Fandango draws a picture of 2 stick figures, which Tyler confirms were the identities. And there was nothing to this segment other than the fact that Fandango was not wearing pants. Did you notice this?
He wasn't wearing pants. What was he wearing?
I don't know. Like
just underwear?
Maybe. But now we know why he does wear pants, because this dude has so much ink all over his legs.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Like you think Pete Dunne, he has the one tattoo on his knee. This guy's legs are covered.
Wow, that's unusual to see somebody without any tattoos above the waist, but
he's got it below the waist. So yeah, go back and watch the video of the pantsless Fandango.
That's interesting. It's like he has permanent pants on.
Yeah, when have you ever seen him without pants before?
No, I guess.
You got to see it here.
This was I would say probably the weakest of the Fashion Files that have appeared so far. There really didn't seem to be anything to it. It was just them saying, all right, now let's go after their greasy-haired, dry-skinned 2-armed monsters. So, but I guess this is setting up another mystery, isn't it?
Or it's John Cena that's behind both attacks because he's a free agent. And he's taken out Enzo, Cass, and now Tyler.
Is he a greasy-haired, dry-skinned 2-armed monster?
Well, John Cena is promoting a new tap-out deodorant now to maybe combat dry skin.
He's not greasy-haired at all, though. He doesn't have that much hair. So who could this be? This is essentially another whodunit that they set up.
Yeah, there's too many of them now. Now we got to keep all of this
greasy-haired. I mean, you automatically think of the Usos, right?
I guess so.
Connor and Victor, one of them doesn't have hair. The other is certainly greasy. Who else could it be?
Well, does it have to be a tag team? It could be just two random people together.
I think he said two. No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So this is setting up their next feud.
Yeah, I guess so. They showed a video on this child, Jarius Robertson, who was awarded a WWE title as a WWE hero. And then they showed him in the crowd, and he was dancing. And I swear, this kid had more charisma than half the people I saw on this show.
They should hire him.
Dasha then interviewed Lana and mentions the controversy she has caused. And Lana doesn't care what Dasha thinks. She's going to shock the world this Sunday and crush Naomi. And then our main event, Owens, Corbin, and Ziggler against Styles, Nakamura, and Sami Zayn.
Oh, my God. It took us like an hour, 20 minutes to get through like Raw. This has taken us like 20 minutes.
There wasn't a whole lot on this SmackDown. Like, it was just very...
All right. I'm fine with that.
Like, this felt like a show that it was one of those, oh, yeah, we've got one more show before the pay-per-view. Yeah. Like, there was no advancement on this show.
Yeah.
There was some momentum on the line. Mm-hmm. And then we had a six-man tag. Styles was tagged in, and he just goes after everyone. He knocks off Owens and Corbin from the apron, hit the Ushigoroshi to Ziggler. Zayn then sends Owens to the floor and hits a Tope-Con hero. Styles went for the Styles Clash, but Ziggler countered with a DDT. They went through a commercial break. Owens and Zayn are in, and Owens hits his DDT, drags Zayn away from his corner, and for the rest of the match, it was Zayn fighting and fighting for this hot tag, and he constantly got cut off. And Corbin would yank him away. Ziggler then missed Zayn, crashed to the floor. Owens goes to the floor. Then he draws in Corbin. He flies to the floor. And then Zayn finally gets over. And Owens and Ziggler yank off Nakamura and Styles from the apron. Just great, I thought. The way they built this and teased it.
It was awesome.
And they never got to the hot tag. Corbin returned and got hit with a forearm from Styles on the apron. And Zayn recovered, hitting the haluva kick and pinned Corbin for a third time. This was far and away the best thing on the show, the six-man tag, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so. It was a sort of a brief, but it was a very entertaining match. And do you think there's any significance to either Zayn getting the victory or Corbin taking the pinfall here?
No, I don't think so. I think that the visual at the end here probably eliminates one person. So Ziggler attacked Zayn after the match. Owens brings in a ladder, and Styles and Zayn get hit with it. And then Owens and Ziggler start arguing as the camera tilts up to the briefcase and misses Corbin taking out both of Owens and Ziggler. We just go back and they're laid out. Corbin then drills Ziggler off the apron with the ladder. He sets it up and Corbin goes to climb, but Nakamura returns, tips the ladder over, hits Corbin with a Kinshasa, and then Nakamura climbs the ladder and unhooks the briefcase. And that's our closing scene, which I would take to mean Nakamura definitely not winning this, to give away that visual.
We don't know, though.
Yeah.
This could be...
These ladder matches, they can change their mind a million times between now and Sunday. So 100%. There's no educated guessing, I feel. Right.
This was, I thought, a real by-the-numbers edition of SmackDown that, like you said, didn't really advance nor detract from any of my anticipation for Money in the Bank. I thought it just kind of served as a reminder that, hey, these are the matches happening on Sunday. That's it.
Yeah, you didn't get any kind of big go-home segment with the women. You didn't get, the six-man tag was what it was. Yeah, it was just a very paint-by-numbers show. I think that's the best way to describe it. Not an awful show, but hardly necessary to view ahead
You
of
don't
Sunday.
need to watch it if you're already excited for the show.
So that was it. That was SmackDown. Reviewed in a record amount of time.
Yeah, really. This is might be our shortest WWE Raw or SmackDown.
Well, people are still getting through Review Raw. That was a long show on Monday.
We are not finished our review yet because we still have Talking Smack and 205 Live on the audio download.
We might spend more time on Talking Smack.
Let's spend it on. Let's do Talking Smack here.
Yes. So this week it was Renee Young and JBL, and they plugged the Money in the Bank show. And JBL noted he's been in one ladder match, and it was with Jeff Hardy in July of 2002. So these references to 02, 03 way.
What, you think there should be a cutoff for references? What is the cutoff? What should not exist?
No, I'm just kidding. History is there for repetition. I actually had to look this up because I couldn't, for the life of me, remember JBL in a ladder match. But this did exist. It was a hardcore title match. Shinsuke Nakamura was the first guest on Talking Smack. And he immediately asks, is it okay if I speak Japanese? And JBL is all too willing to say, yeah, of course. And Renee is thinking, okay, whatever. JBL tries to find some common ground here by mentioning Animal Hamaguchi and his gym. And Renee seems lost already. And then asks, how do you prepare for this match you've never been in? And I am not going to do Nakamura's voice because that will probably be deemed offensive here. But he's going to go to Home Depot to prepare. And there was so much overcompensation for this interview with laughter to anything Nakamura said. Like,
I thought some of these things he said genuinely were funny.
I didn't hate this as most did because I find Nakamura to be genuinely compelling. But I can see the average person, it was really hard to understand him here. So Nakamura is describing his entrance and says he doesn't plan any of these movements. He feels it when he comes out and that it's just natural. So then they played word association with him, with the opponents he has in the ladder match. Kevin Owens, he talks too much. Sami Zayn, same. Dolph Ziggler, and this was interesting, he said, good wrestler, and said if he went to Japan and he points up saying soon. So everyone is dissecting this way. What did Nakamura mean by this?
I don't think it meant anything.
No.
I think it meant if he went to Japan, he would do well or something like that. I think people are reading too much into it, thinking that Dolph is headed to Japan.
I don't know if Shinsuke would.
He would not reveal something like that, even if it were the case.
He then said about AJ Styles, who he had the most to talk about, noting that they wrestled on January 4th last year, mentioning their Wrestle Kingdom 10 match, and says all wrestlers are different when he's asked if he's the best he's ever faced, which was, I think, a really kind way of, he wanted to say AJ is incredible, but I don't think he wanted to say he was the best. But said, if Ty is the perfect 10, AJ is the perfect 100.
Yeah.
He was keeping it 100 here with AJ. And so he had lots of praise for AJ Styles. Baron Corbin, who he did not say was even a perfect 5. He says he doesn't have ladder experience, but has size and a lot of possibilities in the future. And then he was asked about his Instagram and hanging out with James Ellsworth in Costa Rica. And Nakamura just went on forever here talking. I've never heard this man talk so much about one topic as he did James Ellsworth and surfing, and ended it by stating, I think I will enjoy the Money in the Bank match. So this was interesting. This was strange.
It was very interesting. I think because it was going to be the most we've heard Shinsuke speak unscripted in the WWE. It reminded me a lot of his Talk is Jericho appearance, where it was just like, it just felt more like an interview rather than your typical Talking Smack appearance where a character will come on, play a character, and try to sell a match coming up. Shinsuke here didn't seem to be playing any type of character. It seemed more like a forum for him to actually to feel out how comfortable he is doing an interview in English. And I thought, he did well. He seems to have no issues understanding language and understanding any questions that are brought to him. He immediately understands what the announcers are trying to ask him. I think he struggles trying to find the right word to say, trying to maybe find the right pronunciation. But I think if you're a fan of him, you will be patient enough to want to hear his words. I thought he even managed to make the group laugh a couple times. You're saying that maybe it was a little disingenuous, or exaggerated, perhaps?
Maybe at times.
I thought he had some good lines. The word association bit with Owens and Zayn, saying they're both guys who talk too much.
That was a funny line with Zayn.
He showed some personality, but the criticism that I think I have is the personality he displayed here congruent with the character that he's been portrayed to be on TV. What he's been portrayed to be on TV is he's this kind of mysterious dude who's just weird. They're trying to label him as the artist, a guy who doesn't talk too much, but is weird, but is cool and very unpredictable. And I didn't get the sense that it was the same person talking here in this Talking Smack segment. In fact, I feel like maybe a bit of that mystique is kind of lost the more you hear him speak in a forum like this. So ultimately, I'm not sure how productive or necessary something like this was on a Talking Smack. But to me, I think Talking Smack is as much of a tool to sell your storylines as it is a tool for guys to get comfortable speaking in front of a live broadcast audience. And so I would personally like to see a bit more of these. Hopefully, next time Nakamura does one, he'll be able to incorporate a bit more of his character into the appearance itself.
See, you mentioned whether this is congruent with his character on TV. I can't even really speak to the character on SmackDown. I feel they've brought him up with the understanding that, well, there's the one fan base that is already sold on this guy. They love him, and now we've got to win over and introduce him to another audience, which we've seen what they've tried with him. I don't think it's working, and I think it's actually been detrimental to that core fan base that is not overwhelmed either with what they're seeing from him. Right. So putting him on this show, I feel it would have been a significantly better outing had you, again, it's a broken record, but Daniel Bryan being there,
sure,
I think would have been much more beneficial for this segment.
I don't think JBL was bad here, though.
No, he wasn't bad, but there's a certain relatability that Bryan and Nakamura have that he doesn't have with JBL or Renee.
Yep.
And, like, to me, the most fascinating part here was just in passing, Nakamura mentioning why he came here to WWE for something different. And that story hasn't been told at all on SmackDown. Like, you haven't even had that introduction where you could do the story of this guy who was a superstar in one part of the world and came here to make a name for himself, uprooted his family. Like, there's a great story beyond just this incredibly charismatic performer.
Beyond going surfing with James Ellsworth?
That's it, yes. Like, it just, to me, they've taken a lot for granted with one portion of their audience, and it's like, to me, they're not servicing either right now at the moment. Like, he hasn't had your blow-away match. There's very little of character work that you've seen from him. It's the entrance, which you've said yourself has felt like it's lost its importance because he's doing just run-ins on interview segments with that entrance, and it's not a big deal for that entrance, and he shouldn't just be an entrance.
Yeah, it's too bad, and he was wildly successful at NXT, but that's largely because he was already over the moment he got into NXT. So they haven't really had to work on creating that introduction, creating that backstory for this guy. So that I feel like they're kind of scrambling right now to kind of come up with it. And the artist, the rock star, what do these things actually mean? Why is he an artist? Why is he a rock star?
Well, he paints. We don't know what his musical connections are yet. Maybe they saw a video of Tanahashi with the air guitar and they were like, that's why he's over.
Could be.
He's not painting.
Yeah. It's just like kind of different territory, I think, for a lot of, for maybe even Nakamura himself. Like, I'd like to know what his idea is beyond, like, he looks really cool, the posing and everything is really cool, but, like, in his mind, how does he see his own character? Has he had to think of these things? Or is it just the look that he's thought of thus far?
Do you feel that his promos are going to be, it's going to limit him from reaching that potential? I don't feel it should, but in this environment where that's obviously something they value heavily, is that going to be a detriment to him?
So when you say potential, like, what does that mean?
It means that I feel, if you're looking objectively, there is nothing to, like, this is a company that doesn't always think outside of the box, and this is a character that forces you to. Yeah. And I haven't seen any of that. I haven't seen them go different directions with Nakamura to get the maximum value out of him. If they believe, well, he's got to cut promos and he's got to get over just like everybody else, I think we're going to hit a brick wall.
Do you think the potential for him would be WrestleMania main event, John Cena level,
yes.
Roman Reigns level?
Yes.
Interesting. I don't know if I ever had that expectation for somebody like Nakamura to be at that level. I don't see him doing all the TV appearances or anything like that. For me, like, I think his ceiling is maybe, it's tough to say. It's
like,
just,
think about why they even signed him then. If not to be at that level, why are you signing a guy that's taking a spot of someone in your own system?
well, to hurt New Japan, first of all. Also to bolster NXT for the time.
As what?
As the
face of NXT.
Right, as the hardcore fans kind of draw. You know what I mean? And I'm sure part of them thought, well, let's see what happens when we put this guy on the main roster. Perhaps we can translate him just as well. I'm not sure if even Triple H himself thinks of him as a potential face of the company.
He was the face of all their advertising on NXT.
Right, but
they
that's
put 13,000 people buying tickets to a show.
I hope that
this is not a niche product to the degree we sometimes say NXT is.
I think NXT is.
When you're doing that level of business for big shows,
right?
I don't know versus where the WWE is doing. Like, this is a tape. SmackDown probably drew 7,000 people on Tuesday night. It's not like you're filling 20,000 seat buildings.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel like if they simply portrayed him like he was portrayed on in NXT, do you think it would have been a better? He'd be getting better reactions. Do you think it'd be a better, I guess, conversion?
I think there's elements of it. I didn't think the NXT portrayal was a slam dunk, but it was certainly better than this. I mean, we said from the get-go, this guy should not be just like everybody else because he's not. He doesn't have the same strengths as an AJ Styles, for instance. Mm-hmm. He has other strengths that maybe you could argue AJ doesn't have, and you have to play to those.
What are those? Like, if you're the WWE and if you have to, like, because they know how to promote a guy who can speak. They know how to promote a guy who can do these interviews. But how do you promote somebody whose strength is physical charisma?
I think with a lot less talking. I think with things that are just a lot more natural to Nakamura. And I go to just like the story of him coming here that's never been told. You've got to give us some reason to get behind this guy beyond an entrance. Look what they did with Roderick Strong. Guy who was criticized for years as someone could not cut a promo. Mm-hmm. And with 2 video features, this guy's tremendously over if you compare before and after. Just giving this guy a story. Roderick Strong is hardly the greatest talker in the world, but he came across so relatable, just talking like a normal human being. And Shinsuke Nakamura, I don't care if it requires subtitles. Like, he's got an incredible story. He's got a reason. People want to be invested in this guy. I think they're just looking for, give us something. And on his part as well, not to let WWE just shoulder all of this, he really hasn't lit it up either. I mean, he had a good match with Dolph Ziggler on pay-per-view. Not a great match. And it was hardly the performance that I think everyone was expecting. Last week with Owens, you can talk about Owens has a broken hand. They didn't have a lot of time, but nonetheless, it was still flat. So, I mean, there's blame to go around, but I'm not looking at this as any kind of a success on the main roster thus far.
Not yet.
So that was our first guest. Second was Zack Ryder and Mojo Raleigh, and it was 6 months exactly to the day that Zack messed up his knee in the Battle Royal, and they showed the footage of it, and they talk about what Mojo's done since Ryder's been gone, and Ryder put over his achievements, winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. And then JBL asks Mojo, why would you want to go back to a team now? And this is where Zack points out they're still owed a title match from winning that Battle Royal, and they would be stupid not to take this. So they really emphasize that this title shot is everything that has motivated Zack for this return, was this title shot that they are owed. And that, to me, says that they should get this title match and come up short, and could lead to Zack. This whole comeback is squandered and put the blame on Mojo.
Yes, or the other way around.
Yeah, you could go that way too.
Yeah, I think the SmackDown right now certainly has enough tag teams that are in need of development that they don't need the Hype Bros. I don't see the Hype Bros attracting that much fan attention anyway, certainly not as baby faces. I think they seem to have their sights set on pushing Mojo. I feel like he's reached his limit in his current incarnation as a babyface. I think a heel turn is his next step.
So then Jinder Mahal was their final guest with the Singh brothers. This was an appearance. That's as best as I can say. He stated Orton's prime is over. He's the greatest champion ever. Orton proved he was a coward with the RKO tonight because he was expecting a face-to-face, and he won't give out his plans for Sunday.
I wonder if they were running short on time or something, because he just seemed like he was in and out of there really quickly.
I think Renee wanted to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not really constrained all that much to time. This was one of the shorter.
Talking Smacks?
Well, at the end, when you combine 205 Live was a lot shorter than usual as well.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it was like 45 minutes. I mean, they typically go close to an hour.
Yeah. So I mean, Jinder comes out here. I see him slowly progressing each week, and as far as how comfortable he is to speak in character and whatnot. But like you kind of said for Nakamura, I feel like I'm still kind of missing that depth. He speaks a lot like a generic 80s heel without any kind of real substance to why his motivations, what he's doing it for, why he wants to. I'm just looking for something a little deeper, especially for a world championship level character.
You can look at so many examples of the characters where the promos connect, and we're going to talk about this to a great extreme on Friday's Review-A with CM Punk in 2011. But even go back to why you brought up you have an interest in this Randy Orton thing.
Yeah,
he's bringing up something real that you can actually get into. And with Jinder Mahal, I'll say the same. Drew Gulak, again, that's a character that you could, with all the stuff that has been debated about that style. You're not telling me you can get some real issues, some real substance to that character.
Believable.
Yeah. Instead, it's just these, for lack of a better term, WWE promos that are just
or generic
words
wrestling.
on a page that are being recited to me that I have no connection to, that I have no emotional involvement in, that are just words. And there's such a massive disconnect between what connects and what doesn't. And that's where I am with Jinder. Like, I don't feel he is, I think, does have some presence about him, but he's also, I'm going to judge a lot more heavily because of the spot he's in, which is not, to me, he doesn't come across with his promos as a top guy. If we're comparing him to a Kevin Owens, which would be your secondary heel on SmackDown.
I have to agree. I think he looks the part. I think he looks great. I think the entrance for him is great. I think the Singh brothers are great. But in-ring, on the microphone, he is certainly lacking. And I gave him a bit more leeway, in the several months right after. And it's really only been a month.
He's had the title a month.
But he really needs to accelerate that progression. I'm talking like really fast-tracking it, making sure he visibly improves every single week if he wants to maintain the spot for the position he's given in, I think.
So that was SmackDown and Talking Smack. And if you want to hear our review of 205 Live, you can go download Review of SmackDown from liveaudiowrestling.com. You can also subscribe on iTunes and leave us some feedback on iTunes. Leave us a review.
Leave us some feedback there. Leave us some feedback on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate any and all feedback.
All right, that is it for us. So go download the show, and we will speak with you later this week.